Even when there is federal legalization, if that ever comes, I think we're still going to see a lot of barriers for quite some time. I think the hottest take for paralegals is to...
Welcome to Between the Briefs, a podcast by Steno. We're here to bring you practical tips, expert insights, and real conversations about the pretrial process, court reporting, and the legal technology shaping the future of litigation. I'm your host, Adrian.
And I'm your host, Joe Stevens. Whether you're an attorney, paralegal, or just curious about how technology is changing the legal industry, we've got something for you. Each episode will break down complex topics, share behind-the-scenes intel, and talk to the people leading innovation in and out of the courtroom. So grab a coffee and let's get into what's happening between the briefs.
Welcome to Between the Briefs, your go-to podcast for legal innovation. I'm Joe Stevens.
And I'm Adrian. And today we're talking with Sam Misch, a senior paralegal at Green Thumb Industries, one of the leading cannabis companies in the U.S. Samantha's journey through the legal world spans various industries, from government to business development, and now to her current role where she focuses on regulatory compliance in the ever-evolving cannabis sector.
Sam's diverse background and experience in compliance and technology integration have positioned her nicely at the intersection of law and innovation. Sam, it's great to have you here. Adrian and I are ready to get going, so should we just jump right in?
That works. Thank you.
Okay, well, why don't we just set the table for all of our listeners? Tell us how you got to where you are in your career and what you're currently doing.
I knew I wanted to be in law many years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And I tried taking paralegal courses at my local community college, but I was taking night classes and working full time, and it just wasn't, the cards were just not in my favor at that point in time. And then when COVID hit, all the classes went virtual on Zoom. So I re-enrolled, started taking classes, took them still at night, but at home, and eventually finished my paralegal certificate and my associate degree. And then from there, I worked briefly at a local courthouse. And then where I got now, I have a friend that works here, and she's like, oh, there's a paralegal opening. You should apply for it. And I did, not thinking I would ever get the job. And I did. I started as a regulatory compliance paralegal. And then I was promoted maybe 10 months into that role. And I am now the senior paralegal.
That is fascinating. What do you think has led to the large part of your success to now be a senior paralegal?
I still get kind of imposter syndrome when I tell people that I'm a senior paralegal. I questioned, I was like, me? But I think one of the important things is making sure that I'm transparent. And if I don't know how to do something, I just tell everyone, I don't know how to do this, but if you show me how, I will learn. And I think that transparency has helped my boss and the people I work with trusting me, and it helps me grow. There's a lot of things I didn't know when I started this position, and with a little bit of time and the attorneys I work with sharing their insight, I've gained experience in a little bit of so many different fields now.
Sam, I feel like paralegals are very often unheralded for all of the different things that they do and the many hats that they wear. I mean, is that true? Like, if you have to describe the role of a paralegal, I feel like it could mean so many different things to so many different people. What are the things that are most critical to you about doing your job well?
Yeah. So just from what I've learned from the Illinois Paralegal Association, everyone's role as a paralegal is so different. People that work in the exact same title role can have such different things that they actually do. And even my role, I feel like, is unique compared to other in-house roles. So I think it's important for paralegals to be able to know a little bit of everything. I don't think you need to be a master of all things, but you need to have familiarity with a broad range of topics to be successful.
Makes complete sense. And what are one of the biggest challenges you've faced as a paralegal? And how did you overcome it? It's very, standard question, but we do get a lot of listeners that are very curious on like processes, and I feel paralegals, well, they go through a lot of that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think a transition that I struggled with was once I finished my paralegal certificate, and started working as a paralegal, I feel like everything I learned, I was like, I was like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I learned, the very basic of everything, but then when you're actually working in it, it's like a whole other process that you have to learn. Um, so even though I took a litigation class, for example, once I was helping out with the litigation at Green Thumb, I felt like I knew nothing. So it was a struggle for me to transition into a role. And again, I was just transparent with my boss, who's been very supportive of me. And I say, I don't know how to do this, or I ask questions, and they don't make me feel like I'm asking the dumb questions. They've been very supportive and helping me. And I like to think that other places are like that too, in supporting people that are joining the paralegal world. And I joined the paralegal world kind of late. I was in insurance for many years prior to that. So I think just being open and honest helped me with that transition.
Sam, what ways are you seeing? Because can you actually, before I even ask this question, can you just describe your role with the Illinois Paralegal Association and talk about that organization as well?
Yep. So I'm the president. This is my second year that I've been president of the Paralegal Association. And we have a group of board members. We meet once a month virtually and plan out all the events for the year. And our focus is on obviously those working in Illinois in the paralegal profession. Our members have opportunities to meet for social events throughout the year. We had CLE opportunities and the spring education conference, fall education conferences. And we also have a student membership that we're trying to build out more. And that's how I actually found out about the IPA. I was a student member for many, many years. And for the student members, we really try to support them while they're in school and then help them with transitioning to a job as a paralegal. So student memberships come at a discount. There's also a mentoring program. So once you join as a member, you can have someone who is a member that's an established paralegal and give you a mentorship, which is not to say that they help you do your job, but provide support for you so that you can be successful in your role as a paralegal. We also have sustaining members, which are vendors, and they come to our events, they help sponsor our events, and in return, they're able to advertise and market their services to our paralegals.
Gotcha. And I guess so my question then was, given all the education roles that, like the CLEs especially, are you seeing paralegals disrupted now more with the tech available to them and the different tech options that they have now?
I think it's a huge piece of the puzzle now. I feel like several of our CLAs or our conferences are focused on technology and AI topics. And we've done a couple surveys for members to see what they are interested in learning about for CLEs. And the overwhelming majority has recently been technology, AI, and a couple other topics, but predominantly AI and technology.
Wow. So we're seeing a rapid shift. Do you think there's enough, I want to say, CLEs out there that can really bridge the gap between what people really want to learn and what's available?
I think there is. We offer our own, but we are also an affiliate of NALA, which is a national paralegal association. They have all of their own CLEs that you can take as well. So I feel like there's a plethora of CLEs out there. But I think another part of it is also using AI and using the platform so that you can familiarize yourself with how it works instead of just taking a session on it.
Got it. Got it. And I was curious, when it comes to Green Thumb Industries, could you tell us a little bit more about that? What is it? What is your current role in there?
hmm So I'm the senior paralegal. Green Thumb Industries is a public company and it is a cannabis company. We are one of the leaders in the industry. When I say public company, I should specify that we are listed on the OTC market and Canadian stock exchange market. My role is kind of a little bit of everything. I I think half my job is paralegal work and half my job is legal operations.
Uh, I think it goes back to my point. Like, it seems like paralegals, you just do everything. Like, there's so many things that are in your, but in your case, What is a big misconception about the cannabis industry? We had a guest on here before, maybe a couple months ago, and she was really dealing with alcohol regulations in New York, and it was really interesting for her to position, um, some of the challenges that they were having or that they've had in that industry as potentially ones that are, happening in the cannabis world as well. So I'm just curious, like, what misconceptions actually exist about the industry and what your biggest fights are right now.
I feel like it is still a very stigmatized industry. I always am cautious when I tell people what I do because I don't know how they're going to react to it. And I feel like sometimes assumptions are made when they hear what I do or what my job is. And I think a big part of what Green Thumb is trying to do is remove that stigma and show that we are normal, everyday people. We are successful people. And I think part of the stigma in the dispensaries is people assume the worst when they hear of a dispensary being potentially built in their town. But it like alcohol, even more so than alcohol, it is a very highly regulated industry. The regulations are changing monthly, maybe even daily in some states. It's really hectic to keep up with, but it is definitely highly regulated. There are rules for everything you could think of.
So how do you keep up? I feel like there's in a world that's always changing, how do you know that you're staying on par with what the new laws are and playing in the right system?
So we have a regulatory compliance team and a government affairs team, and they are responsible for keeping up with those regulations and making sure that the broader teams understand what those regulations mean and how to apply it. Um, we also, I'm big on networking. So you're the network of the cannabis industry. It's important to be sharing with other people when you learn about a new regulation or the implications of a regulation. So all of those pieces are really important, I think, to making sure you're successful.
W- Is there, I live in Texas, and Texas just very recently had a big sort of, I mean, a bill made its way to the governor's desk that would have functionally banned the entire industry from the state of Texas. Um, Given that it is so state by state regulated, are things like that, like what I just described, huge bit of priority legislation for the lieutenant governor of Texas, like, those are the kind of things that you're tracking internally and trying to figure out what it might mean?
Yes, we track everything in every state, even states that we don't have markets in. We're still keeping an eye on things to see how things are developing.
Why do you think, like, other than the stigma that you're talking about, I mean, you say it's even more regulated in the alcohol industry. Is that just a product of its sort of infancy as an industry, or what do you attribute that to?
I think that's part of it, and I think because it's federally illegal, there's just a lot of barriers to overcome. And even when there is federal legalization, if that ever comes, I think we're still going to see a lot of barriers for quite some time.
I can definitely see this. I was actually watching a documentary on this recently, and he talked about how financing is probably one of the most biggest headaches in like the cannabis industry, because everything base essentially needs to be held in cash, because banking won't necessarily touch it because it's not federally legal. So I wonder if, as you have you encountered anything like that when you work with clients and they want, start a dispensary, but then the financing portion, although that has everything to do with money, does it fall into the world of law in any way?
It does. I don't have a lot of involvement in it, but I do know that there is a struggle, a big struggle when it comes to banking, and that a lot of things need to be held in cash, and the risks and dangers you're taking when a multi-million-dollar business is operating on just cash.
Sam, so with the dual hats that you wear internally, what does your sort of day to day look like with in your role?
So for the legal operations aspect, I'm responsible for managing all of the invoices that come in from outside counsel and applying it to our budget. A little bit of making sure we're staying on budget, processing the invoices, um, and then I also do more of like the substantive paralegal work. So that's like helping with litigation, distributing legal holds, and helping with regulatory compliance. Sometimes it's basic things like preparing agendas for meetings. Another piece that I do is trademark work, and that was that actually came about because I just asked. I said I wanted to learn more about trademarks. Can I help with it? And um, it was given to me and with free range. So I do a lot of helping with that now. And we do still use outside counsel for it, but I'm helping with collecting all the information that we need. But even with trademarks, there's again a barrier. There's only so much we can do with getting federal trademarks. So a lot of ours are state trademarks, which have limited availability.
That would make sense. And how does AI or technology fit into all of this? Just hearing your day to day with litigation and everything, how does technology play a role?
We are not very pro AI at this point. Um, yeah, we're not implementing very much AI technology. But I do try to attend CLEs and stay up to date on it. Should the need arise, then I can definitely help if that point comes.
And what's the thought process there, Sam? What or is there, because we've had, again, guests running the entire spectrum on this podcast who are sort of injecting into every area of their life, and others who are a little bit more hesitant or skeptical or cautious. What's your positioning on that spectrum? Where does that come from?
I see a little bit of both sides. I can definitely see how AI could help and streamline processes. But I do understand that, when it comes to like ChatGPT, for example, that things can hallucinate. So I definitely see the dangers in asking AI to write your case brief or use it for some kind of litigation site. Um, so I think take it with a grain of salt, but when it comes to streamlining processes, AI has really kind of already been there. When you think of e-billing systems, for example, their AI has been in it to use those processes. I think it's more of like the chats and the what are those learning language models that have that are newer.
Got it. Got it. Now, a big portion of this is, I think as a paralegal, is really managing your manager. How do you go about doing that with an attorney whenever you have a very heavy caseload?
Something I have learned as a paralegal is to write down everything. My calendar, I've got several reminders every day or every week. My boss or someone I work with will make a comment, "Oh, remind me about so and so in a couple weeks." Um, and you need to make sure you are reminding them because they will forget. So I have been putting those in my calendar, in my notes. I write everything down because I know I'm the one that's going to be responsible for making sure that something from a month ago gets brought back up again.
Let's dig into this a little bit more, Sam. Like, what are some other things that maybe paralegals aren't taught but are critical to the practice or critical to your job that you wish that everyone knew?
There's a couple, I guess, learning how to do the job. So, as I mentioned before, when I had my paralegal certificate, I took a litigation class. I took a law office technology class. We did assignments, but then when it comes to applying it in a job, it seems so different. Um, so, I had to learn how to implement a legal hold. Um, I had to learn how to do tasks like that, and I wish those things would have also been taught in school. How to take the things that you're learning in your litigation class and apply it to how you would be in your role as a paralegal.
That makes a lot of sense. If there was any new tips for a beginning paralegal, someone who's like fresh, just got their certificate, looking to apply to a firm, what do you recommend they do to get their foot in the door and really kickstart their career?
I always tell people that I wouldn't jump to just a paralegal role. There's so many other roles that you can have, like a legal assistant or even a legal secretary. And I know when I say that, sometimes people are like, "Well, I took the paralegal classes. I don't want to be a legal secretary." But it's a really good way to get your foot in the door, get the experience, and understand how processes work. Whereas for me, I jumped into it and I didn't really know how to do things. So I think starting out in a lower position helps you really build the education that you need. And also, even my time at the courthouse helped me learn how the court aspect of it worked. And the clerks actually are so amazing and so smart. And I say if you can't find a job as a paralegal, start as a clerk. You learn so much that way.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I feel like the non-judge in the courthouse, like the clerk, the court reporter, that these functional roles are so critical to the operation of the system. And again, talk about groups of people that wear many hats. Um, Sam, I guess let's if we bring these worlds together for a second, one thing that does seem to come up regardless of whether people are skeptical or not of AI, it's definitely transforming the legal practice in some way, shape, or form. And so one question that I always do have is like, how does that live in the paralegal world? There's all these tools that can potentially make your job so much more efficient. Is there any concern at all on the paralegal world about like, well, a lot of this technology is now doing this job that I've been doing for a while. Like, what does that mean for the future of the industry? How is that discussed among paralegals?
I think there are paralegals that do fear AI could take over their role, but we have a pretty strong stance that the thing with AI is that it's not a human. It can't call the client and talk to them. It doesn't have an empathetic component to share or understand feelings from someone else. So to me, and I think a broad majority of paralegals, is AI cannot replace a paralegal. It could definitely streamline some processes and maybe help with creating a more efficient workload, but it can't replace the person that has to pick up the phone and talk to a client or any types of communication like that. It's not going to be able to replace that.
I could see that totally. We're always going to need the human element, and it is such an important part of the conversation that many people overlook. It's always going to be necessary. Now, when it comes to client facing, are you interacting a lot with these, like all your clients? I know you're supporting the attorney, right, in the litigation process, but are you speaking to the customer at any point or understanding their needs? Is there anything like that?
Um, I am mostly talking to my team internally and outside counsel, but even to the extent where I work with outside counsel, because of my job with the legal operations and the invoicing, the majority of when I am speaking with outside counsel, it is to their billing departments or their accounting departments, or their paralegals that also manage the billing.
When you I guess one of the things that also comes up when I talk to paralegals a lot, because there's some of my favorite people to talk to, but when it is like, so there's this concern or there's this everyone does so many different things. And then I also feel like paralegals are the full of really good ideas on how processes should be disrupted. Like you are usually living at the heart of so many things that are either going smoothly or things that you wish you could change. A question that we always seem to get, or I always get at the end of my time talking to paralegals is, okay, let's say I am this paralegal that has all these good ideas, or I think that if we implement a couple of small changes, it would be really astronomically beneficial to the way that our office works. How do you advise a paralegal to actually get a louder voice in a room?
That's tough for me because I feel like I need someone to tell me how to have a louder voice. I'm very fortunate that I work with people that are very supportive. I could suggest pretty much anything and they're gonna support and give me feedback on if it's a good idea or not. And I would hope that other attorneys and law firms work that way too, because the paralegals are the backbone or the silent helper in the room. Um, and oftentimes I feel like they have more of the small detailed knowledge that maybe the attorneys don't get a chance to see. Um, so I guess making sure the attorneys are supportive of welcoming ideas from paralegals is the most important thing because if I didn't feel supported in my role, I would not be more open about sharing my ideas with my team.
Right. It's a cultural thing at that point, right? Like it's is the culture inside the place that you're working receptive to even having conversations about that, whether no matter who the ideas are coming.
Yeah. Yes. And even my own boss. So when I bring things up, I'm like, well, I'm not an attorney, but and he's just flat out like, I don't care if you are or not, if you went to law school or not, I appreciate your ideas and you're smart and you're capable. And so yeah, he appreciates my feedback.
What should a paralegal look out for in their culture? You mentioned this need for be open to new ideas. Are there any other things that you would consider green flags for a role?
I mean, the team, I think if a paralegal is interviewing, I would ask what the team is like. How often do they communicate with each other? I am uh, almost fully remote in my role, and I've, for the most part, worked from home for the greater part of, I don't know, the last 10 years. Um, so I understand that there's a little bit of a gap in communication when you work from home, um, but making sure that you are connected with your team members still and have a chance to be able to get along with or talk with them, not even in a working capacity, but in lunch or a happy hour or something. Something that makes you guys connected with each other outside of just talking about work.
Sam, how big is the Illinois Paralegal Association? And is it like, yeah, I'm just curious. Can you set that up for us?
We have, I want to say, about 500 members. And those are comprised of regular members, student members, sustaining members. So there's different membership types, as I mentioned before, where a vendor, for example, would be a sustaining member. So we have about 500, maybe a little bit more than that. It has been a declining number for the past several years, and I've talked with other states' paralegal associations, and so many of them are on a decline over the past few years, and we're not entirely sure why that's happening, other than the general consensus is ever since 2020 is when things have gone down. And there's some conflicting reasons why, as well as conflicting information. When we send out surveys and we ask, would you rather have in-person events or would you rather have virtual events? Predominantly, people wanted virtual events. But then when we do host in-person events, they sell out. They're full. They have better attendance than virtual events. So um, it's kind of hard to determine what's the best approach.
That is so interesting. I feel like is people's introverted side going, yeah, I'd rather just have this be digital. But as soon as you mention, hey, but we could all just meet at this cool restaurant, everyone says yes, of course. I would love that. uh, do you think that anything can really be done to really stimulate the growth again of paralegals? Because you're right, it's very hard to decide what it is that's leading to the lower decrease in membership, but is there maybe a new phrasing or messaging that could really drive home how valuable it is to paralegals that could increase the numbers?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things I think that's happening in the legal industry is that the title paralegal is being not removed, but they're giving different names to paralegals. Um, I've seen some where it's legal assistant. I've seen some where it's legal operations manager. Um, One of our board members is a claims specialist, but does paralegal work. So the names have changed so much. And a lot of paralegal associations will have in their bylaws, for example, that you have to be a paralegal. Well, with the trend, it seems, is that the phrase paralegal is transitioning a little bit to a broader range of other job titles. So that could be something that we would have to change in the future, because there's so many different roles these days that all are paralegals, but that have a different job title.
Sam, what made you want to take a leadership role within IPA?
I have been was a student member of the IPA for many years. Back when I first tried taking paralegal classes back in, I don't know, 2009, my professor told me about the IPA, and I joined as a student member on and off up until 2020. And then when I started taking classes again, I remained as a student member until I graduated, and then I transitioned to a regular member. I kind of knew at that point, after being a student member for so many years, that I really appreciated the IPA, the CLEs that they offered, the networking that they offered. So it's a great organization. I knew that I wanted to be a part of it. And then once I was a regular member, I joined on as a board member for 1 year. And then after that year, our immediate past president, Melissa, was stepping down from the president role And the consensus among the board was me. It had to be me. So I was a little shocked about it, but also excited at the same time. And it's been a experience and quite a learning process. But it's been great.
You mentioned earlier that they offer mentorships, right? Have you had a mentor yourself, and have you guys been able to kind of gauge how valuable of a resource that has been for your members?
So our board member, Liana, is in charge of the mentor program. It doesn't, I feel like it's kind of a lesser known thing that we offer. So one of our goals for this year was to advertise more about it. We've seen success with the mentorship program. I have not had a mentor myself. I could probably mentor someone, but even the mentors we have requirements for what we want in a mentor. But it's one of the lesser known things, and we want to share more about it this year and try to kick it up, especially with students. I feel like it could be a really valuable experience for them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What kind of skills do you think? I mean, like obviously, mentorship mentee dynamic can vary from person to person and depending on what line of work you're in. But I truly do think that paralegal is one of those jobs that, as you described, I mean, it's almost like a lawyer in that way. Law school is not going to teach you how to be a lawyer. You still have to go and do the thing. And it sounds like that's just as true in the world of paralegals too.
Yes. When you take training first, so my certificate was ABA approved. Oh, there's a good handful of programs in my state where the programs are ABA approved. There's also paralegal programs that are not ABA approved. And there are standards for that ABA approval. But I think that having the approval is important because it helps set a standard that I think when a lawyer or an attorney sees that someone has an ABA approved certificate, I feel like there's a little bit of a higher respect for it. But I think that ties in well with the mentor program.
Love that. Now, we always ask this at the end of our conversation, and that is, what is your hottest take on the industry right now?
I think the hottest take for paralegals is to stay up to date on technology and AI. Even in my situation where my employer is not using many AI functions, you never know when that's going to change. And paralegals are in that administrative function, usually the person that has to help troubleshoot when things go wrong. So I think it's important to stay on top of the trends and understand it. So when it does come into your role, you are prepared and know what to do with it.
There you have it. There's the hot take, Adrian.
Love it. Well, thanks for being with us on Between the Briefs, and a huge thank you to Sam Misch for sharing her insights into the world of legal compliance and technology, as well as her unique journey in the cannabis industry.
Subscribe now so you won't miss the next wave of insights and stories from the cutting edge world of legal tech. Right here with me, Joe Stevens, and of course, my co-host, Adrian Saya.
All right, well, keep on pushing the envelope and innovating your practice, and we'll see you on the next one. Up next on Between the Briefs.
When a kid comes into juvenile court, the question is not just what have they done. You got to ask, well, what was done to them?
Stay tuned for the full interview coming to you soon. Between the Briefs is brought to you by Steno. To find out more about Steno and how we combine exceptional court reporting and litigation support services to deliver a superior litigation experience, visit steno.com. That's STENO.com. And then make sure to search for Between the Briefs in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Steno, thanks for listening.